here at Wimbledon, brought to you by Novellis. And yeah, we're still going. We still have Yannick Sinner on the court playing in his fourth round match. And why that's important is our guest tonight is commentating on that match. And we were like, no problem. He's going to be here in a minute. Jonathan Overend. And then they decided to close the roof. So the roof's been closed. We're following closely. Sinner's about to go 6-5 up. If he wins 7-5, no problem. We'll have him at the time that we thought that we were going to have him. If Yannick Sinner goes into a tie break, it might be a little bit later than we were expecting, but that's okay. You know, we can roll with the punches as we have done all week. And I hope everyone's well. And just, I guess, a little reminder before we get going: just get your questions in. You know, on the chat. Get those questions in. And myself, or even if you've got a question for Jonathan as well, send them in and we will answer your questions live. It's your opportunity to put us on the spot, your opportunity to ask the question that you wanted to ask. And we are there to help you with that. We, as always, will have the major moments brought to you by Soto Tennis Academy, the major moments of the day. And it feels to get more and more major the closer we get to the business end of the tournament. And then we have our tennis athlete player of the day. And then we will have Jonathan on discussing his incredible Wimbledon experiences, or specifically one experience that I think some of you might know pretty well. So look out for that one. And then we'll finish with some questions. If we are struggling a little bit in terms of Jonathan getting over from Yannick Sinner, then we will jump into the questions first, and then we'll have Jonathan to finish the show off. So jumping into today, it's all happening, isn't it, on the women's side of the draw? You know, and it's Aryna Sabalenka has gone out. You know, I commentated on that match, actually, Naomi Osaka and Aryna Sabalenka at Roland Garros, and it was a great match. And you kind of felt, I was talking about it then, you felt like Naomi Osaka was starting to just make inroads in a really sustainable, manageable way, you know, in terms of how she was, you know, solid coaching team behind her, picking up the ranking a little bit, doing pretty well now. I think she was 16 seed at Roland Garros. She's then a little bit higher here. And then I did hear by a few people this morning that a coaching team is saying she's playing the best she's ever played right now. She's really, really playing well. She's loving the grass courts at Wimbledon. And she took out Aryna Sabalenka 6-2, 7-6 to make her first ever quarterfinal here at Wimbledon. And Sabalenka was bid for her 15th consecutive Grand Slam quarterfinal, has been ended abruptly. And Sabalenka at the end was banging her racket against her head as Osaka took the second set to a tiebreak. And, you know, it feels like we've had the script ripped up a little bit. You know, who's now going to come out on top? Is it Jess Pegula's year? You know, she had a great win against Jovic from a set down, and she's kind of no nonsense. She lost to your first round last year, but I think that's who the tennis circle want. You know, Jess Pegula. She was born as a billionaire, you know, into that family, but you would not know it. She's humble, she's hardworking, she gets on with her job, and she's very, very popular around the grounds, around the tournaments, and she will potentially play Coco Gauff, her friend, her doubles partner, Coco Gauff, if Coco gets through her match, which is happening right now as well on court one. So yeah, lots still to unfold. And then don't count out Mukova. And actually, I actually think she now plays Naomi Osaka. And the one thing I'd say about Mukova is she has the type of game style that can really mess with Osaka. You know, she can serve volley. The question mark around Mukova is she able to stay fit? You know, she's had a lot of fitness issues when she's had high load as she's got later into the tournaments. because if she's consistently on the court, we're talking about a top 5 player in the world right now. So the women's draw is exciting. The singles draw is really exciting, and that's happened there. We've had Jan-Lennard Struff advance his first ever Grand Slam quarterfinal. Really unfortunate that Hurkacz had to retire. He was 2-0 up in that match, and then he just deteriorated rapidly in the fourth set, and he just couldn't do it. He was just grimacing in his face, and there we have it. What we now have as well, we have Struff has moved through to the quarterfinals, where he will now play. Let me just quickly pull up the draw. Struff will now play against potentially Yannick Sinner. Probably not quite who you do want to see in the quarterfinals. And then we got Felix Auger-Aliassime, who Felix was... we were watching a mixed doubles match, and we looked over, and Felix served for the set, I believe, or the match in the fourth set. I think 5-3 or 5-4 in that, and then lost 7-6, but then won 6-1 in the fifth set against Davidovic Fokina. And he will now play Novak Djokovic. Novak Djokovic winning in 4 sets earlier today against Safalin. And yeah, I guess those are the stories. Is it going to be Novak Djokovic, number 25? He comes up against Felix in the next round, and then you'd think Yannick Sinner would be waiting in the semi-finals for him. And it kind of feels that could be a final. You know, I'd love to see it. Yannick Sinner against Novak Djokovic in the final as he goes for number 25. Whereas we might have that as a semi-final. Felix and Struff are going to have something to say about that. It's great to see Felix going so deep. We had a thing on Instagram, I think, on the podcast. We put a clip out earlier in the year where we picked Felix to be the 3 or 4 player in the world, and we took dogs abuse. Felix is terrible. Felix can't hit a backhand. Felix is this. Felix is that. Now, I do believe Felix is like 5 in the world right now. So I don't think we were too far wrong on that. And he serves beautifully. He's got incredible athlete, unbelievable serve +1. You know, comes forward and is able to finish at the net when getting the ball above the height of the net. I know he doesn't have the best hands. But is it Felix's time? You know, you guys let us know, who do you think we have to watch. It seems to be moving into an exciting end of the tournament. And then a lot of people would say, well, maybe Zverev's going to come through that bottom half, but I would imagine maybe a Taylor Fritz has got something to say about that. Watch out for Taylor Fritz in that part of the draw. And don't be surprised to see Taylor Fritz in the final next Sunday would be my call. The match everyone's going to watch here at Wimbledon tomorrow is Grigor Dimitrov against Arthur Ferry. The incredible performance from the young Brit, and I think he'll fancy his chances against Grigor tomorrow, you know. And Grigor doesn't have a lot of tennis in him. He's played a 5-set match yesterday, got through. The crowd helped him get through, but I would imagine that body is probably a bit sore today, you know. And I think this is something. I think it's something that we've got to see now. You know, is Grigor going to be ready for that match, or is it time for the young Brit to come through? Moving into our tennis athlete player of the day, I think it's very obvious who that is today. You know, Naomi Osaka taking down Aryna Sabalenka in straight sets on centre court to reach her first ever Wimbledon quarterfinal. And she's not dropped any sets across the first 4 rounds, but she's absolutely looks on it. Incredible form as she's moving through. Big shout out to her and her coach Thomas Wiktorowski, who was the former coach of Iga Swiatek. She is a 4-time Grand Slam champion. Her last Grand Slam was 5 years ago at the Australian Open. And she's a mom, became a mom in 2023, and now faces Mukova in the next round. So watch out for that. Thank you for any questions coming in. I do seem to have somebody in the comments who's just basically writing dogs abuse. So okay, that's fair. Ghost of Garolitis is sending some something in. So thank you, Ghost of Garolitis, for listening. But just yeah, maybe we don't need the abuse, right? But that I'm sure that's easily banned from these places. We do have Yannick Sinner now has won the second set, so it won't be long before Jonathan Overend is joining us. But we're going to now move and jump into the Dear Dan questions. Get your questions in if you want on the chat. We do have a couple that have come in so far. Which doubles teams are looking the most dangerous in the men's doubles so far this year? Now, that's not an easy question, because I think a lot of them have struggled, but they've got through. So if you take Harry Heliavara and Henry Patton, they escape. They've escaped out of a couple of monumental holes the last couple of rounds. 7-4 down in the match tiebreak in the round two in the third set, and then in the third round they today were 4-1, 15-40 down on Henry's serve in the third set, and came back to win in another match tiebreak 7-6, which is, when you're winning matches like that, it doesn't mean that they're looking the most dangerous. No, but I think when you get through matches like that, it builds a lot of confidence in what you're doing. If we take the kind of the score lines, Kravitz and Poots have struggled, but they've made their way through. We've got. I'm interested tomorrow to see Cash and Glasspool. I think they play against a very good team in Nusa and Oberleitner. Oberleitner's a one to watch, in my opinion, and obviously Julian and Lloyd haven't had a great year after coming in here as the defending champions. Is this going to be the way that they're going to really kickstart their year? Aravello Pavic again haven't won much of late. I know they won Queens. I think it was their first tournament in over 12 months. So I think that's interesting, but it's certainly not a foregone conclusion. Nobody's really kind of putting their hands up and saying where the ones to beat. But I do think a lot of the top seeds are going to end up in that final eight, the way that it's looking. So yeah, and then it's going to be a great shootout from quarterfinals onwards. Dear Dan, if you could have coached any doubles team in history, who would you have chosen? Whew. Coached. I mean, when I go through these amazing teams, I think, well, do they need me to coach them? John McEnroe is an example. John McEnroe and Peter Fleming, jumps to mind. It would have been fun to sit there and have that amazing view of watching Johnny Mack in action. I can imagine he messed with a hell of a lot of doubles players out there with the way he plays. Martina Navratilova, the 59-time Grand Slam champion Martina Navratilova. It's obscene how many doubles and mixed doubles events she's won. I can only imagine how special that would have been watching her. And then, of course, the Bryan brothers, a pair that I was lucky enough to play back in 2005. The energy, I guess one of my big things with doubles is like unconditional energy, unconditional effort, unconditional throwing yourself into the fire and kind of putting your best foot forward. And certainly the Bryans did that in absolute spades. So to have been around them and spent time with them, I think would have been a real treat as well. So yeah, if you're going to put me on the spot, I would say maybe John McEnroe and Peter Fleming. I think, or John McEnroe and anyone. Sorry, Peter, but almost anyone. I think John McEnroe would have been a special player to have been around. It certainly wouldn't have been a walk in the park. I would imagine he challenges you in lots of ways as a coach. But yeah, hopefully, Sophie, that answers the question a little bit. In terms of my proudest moment at Wimbledon as a player or as a coach, I think we might have talked about this the other night. I guess you have lots of different moments, really. Like it's hard sometimes to pick one. The obvious one is being around a team that made the final, and here we have him, Jonathan Overend. A big welcome.
Hi Dan, how are you doing?
I'm very good. How are you? We've had all sorts. We've had all sorts thrown at us all week, to make the guests late. And then just when I think, do you know what? We're finally going to get a guest on time, they decided to close the roof.
Well, let me tell you where I am at the moment, because it looks very dull, doesn't it? I mean, it looks like I've literally chosen the most boring backdrop imaginable. But if I just swing this way a little bit, and I'm going to have to be quite careful here because I'm going to have to stop before you see the grass for rights issues.
Look
But
at
I
that.
am in the BBC 5 Live commentary box right on centre court. And in front of me, I've got Yannick Sinner and Shintaro Mochizuki, who've just played a really entertaining second set that's been won by Yannick Sinner. He leads the match 2-0. But yeah, that's the reason I'm slightly late, because I was commentating on the second set. And here I am still on centre court, speaking to you and also enjoying the third set of this match.
And what a treat. And do you see anything other than a straight sets victory for Yannick Sinner now?
Well, the chance for Mochizuki was in that second set. I mean, it was an incredible effort from him. He made it so he saved a couple of break points at 4-3. Then the roof closed, took it to a tiebreak, which Sinner won 7-0. So the tiebreak was completely one-sided. But it was a classic underdog effort, I would say, from Mochizuki. He gave it absolutely everything. He gave Sinner different looks, different paces. He's been coming into the net a lot. And Yannick's been getting irritated in a way that I rarely see him get irritated. And that's all credit to Mochizuki, isn't it? 151 in the world.
Yeah.
And it's the sort of match to just illustrate how much talent there is further down the rankings. There's not much to choose between them. If anything, you could argue Mochizuki was a better player in the second set.
Jonathan, what a treat to have you with us, and a big thank you for jumping on so quickly after that, and us getting an opportunity to see where you are. But I'm going to take you back, because the guests that have been coming on, they've been talking to us about their favourite memory. I actually am not really giving them a choice, actually. I'm picking the memory for them and giving you a chance to then go back to that time. I don't know if it's the same box that you're currently in that you were in back in 2013, but a certain was he young then? He was kind of, I guess, 26 years old, wasn't he, Andy? 25, 26 when he won Wimbledon. But 2013, we were waiting 77 years for a male winner. We all went through 2012, just went through the ringer with him. I think we kind of fell in love with him even more after that final, when we saw him break down on the centre court. And then we all remember where we were in 2013 on that day, playing Novak Djokovic. I was racing back to get to my parents' house up in the northeast of England to watch the final set, and I was climbing up and down the settee, and I couldn't sit still, and I remember the emotion so well. But you were there, not only experiencing that, but then having to describe it to the ears in Great Britain. So take us back to that day, how you prepare for a day like that, and what that meant to be part of such an incredible, epic event that will go down in history.
Yeah, how long have we got, Dan?
15 minutes.
You're bringing back all the emotions as you set us up there. All the emotions, because I was literally in the same seat as I am now. And as I look out at Sinner and Mochizuki in front of me at the moment, I'm sort of picturing Murray and Djokovic from that day, and there are so many memories. I think the first thing to say, and you're right to provide the context, because context was everything going into that, and not just the 77 years of context, the waiting for a British male champion in the singles events at Wimbledon since Fred Perry, but what had happened previously. The defeat to Federer. First up, like you say, the tears into Sue Barker's microphone. That was definitely the moment of more connection between the public and Andy Murray. But then remember what happened a couple of weeks after that. He was back on the same court to win the gold medal at the Olympics, beating Djokovic and Federer. He thrashed Federer in the gold medal match. So to have that immediate chance to get over the Wimbledon final was a totally unique opportunity for Andy Murray. It will never happen again, but he did it, and that counted for so much. Then, of course, he goes to the US Open and beats Djokovic in the final of the US Open, having led 2-love, Djokovic having pinned him back to 2-all, when everyone's thinking Djokovic is going to go on and complete the comeback victory. But Andy comes good in that fifth set to win his first Grand Slam. Djokovic then prevails in Australia. There's so much going on. And then, you fast forward all the way through the tournament. Nobody ever remembers who Andy played in the semi-final of Wimbledon that year. Do you remember who he played in the semi-final of Wimbledon 2013? It's a totally random one.
Oh my goodness.
Apologies for the quiz question.
No, this is a good question, and this is something that's going to annoy me. It wasn't Burditch, was it?
No, it wasn't Burditch. I'm going to give you 35 guesses, and I don't think you'll get it.
Really? So
The
no.
match I always remember from his run was Verdasco earlier in the tournament. Was it
Yes.
fourth round or quarterfinal? But he was going out. Verdasco was inspired. I'll take people off their tenterhooks. It was Jerzy Janowicz of Poland in the semi-finals, who'd had a brilliant run. But anyway, Andy was obviously the strong favourite to win that, and he came through it. And so we get to the 7th of July, 2013. And what I remember from that day is what an unbelievably glorious British Sunday afternoon it was. It was a picture-perfect Sunday. And as you looked up into the blue skies, you just felt like everything, for all the reasons I talked about a minute ago, the Olympics, the US Open, the revenge against Djokovic, it just felt that everything had aligned and everything was perfectly into position. And of course, Andy goes into a 2-sets-to-love lead in the final against Djokovic. He goes into a break lead in the third set. He's leading 2-sets-to-love and a break in the Wimbledon final. And it felt absolutely too good to be true. And of course it was. It was too good to be true, because back comes Djokovic, and Andy's serving for the match. And Djokovic has these breakback points in this extraordinary game at 5-4. And to this day, I'm looking out on centre court now, and I'm picturing Djokovic at my end here, the Royal Box end where I'm sitting at the moment, Andy at the far end. And there's the weirdest feeling about that game, in that I think the closest Andy Murray came to defeat in that Wimbledon final was almost when he had championship point. Because Djokovic knew Sinner's just in front of me here, right now, live. But 13 years ago, it was Djokovic in this very corner. And he comes over to this corner of the court and he smirks and he's laughing with the crowd, because he knows, and I think we all knew, that if Andy lost his serve, having had 3 championship points at 5-4, 40 love, Djokovic, in some warped, weird tennis scoring system driven way, was actually the favourite to then go on and win in 5 sets. So how Andy ever closed that match out, I will never know. It was the most remarkable thing I've ever seen in my life. And to this day, those memories live with me, and I'm so pleased they do, because it was the greatest thing I've ever seen, and one of the great, if not the greatest, British sporting achievement. Getting a bit emotional now.
It was. There's no one better to describe it, Jonathan, as well. You have a way that you take us all back there, and you bring the emotion out so incredibly well. And I was about to ask you a question that I asked Andy, actually. I had the privilege of having Andy on the podcast a couple of years ago, and there was 2 things I wanted to ask him, and that I'd always. I'm a big tennis fan. I'm a tennis coach, but I'm a big tennis fan. I'm a big tennis enthusiast, and I'm also a big Andy Murray fan. He kind of, I think, inspired us all in the sport, certainly in this country, but even further afield. So to have him sitting in front of me, I was like, I have to. I've thought about. I've had many a day where I'm just kind of staring outside and thinking about tennis and thinking about different things, and I wonder if this feeling I had, because that 2012, before Australian Open, I had the privilege of sitting in the player box directly behind Ivan Lendl as he played Novak Djokovic on the centre court in Rod Laver Arena in the semi-finals, the 4-hour, 54-minute epic battle that they had. And what I felt I saw that day, when he won the second set or third set 7-6, it was the third set, I think, then he lost the next set 6-1. I felt I saw him start to believe that he could beat Novak Djokovic in the biggest of matches. And the way that he spoke to the box, it was all saying leading into winning that third set, I can't do this. I told you I can't do this. I've told you I can't beat him. It's not possible. It's da-da-da. And then I remember his face vividly when he won that tiebreak. It was like, I did.
Yeah.
And there was this moment of belief that just kind of descended. Now Novak Djokovic being Novak Djokovic, he then lost that next set 6-1 because I think he was still in that headspace. So I asked Andy that, and he admitted that there was a big moment of belief then. The second question I asked him, and that made me feel like I wasn't just making things up, because it was almost like a magical moment I felt I had the privilege of experiencing. The next question I asked him, which I was going to ask you, was serving for that match. If you lose that game, who was the favourite to win that match?
Yeah.
And
Djokovic was the favourite.
And he said, without a doubt, Novak Djokovic.
Yeah.
And that is, like you said, the weird, wonderful scoring system of tennis. You're two sets to love up, you're 5-4 up, you are serving for the title, and you lose your serve, it's 5-all. Yet somehow it just felt so strong that that tide was going to turn.
And actually, you can dive even in deeper into that game if you're going to look at it a lot. Frame it like that. Who was the favourite? Yeah, I totally agree. Djokovic was the favourite if he won that game. But what about within the game itself? When Djokovic had the break-back points, and he played unbelievably. He played some incredible tennis. So he was obviously of that mindset as well. I've got to win this point. The deuce points were deuce points. They kind of happened. I don't really remember what happened on the deuce points. So could you actually argue the nearest Novak Djokovic came to victory was when he was championship point down at 40 love? I mean, bonkers thing to say. But the pressure was all on Andy at 40 love. And so it proved, because it went from 40 love to advantage Djokovic. It's that incredible thing of pressure, isn't it? It's the great abstract element of our sport that none of us have truly ever, or nobody will ever get to the bottom of what it is, what it does, and how it works. And no one ever will be immune from pressure. Andy certainly felt it from 40 love, but then did he feel it on the deuce points? Not as much. Did he feel it on the advantage points for Djokovic? He played some of his best tennis of the match when he was break point down. So, yeah, I mean, how he got through that game, I'll never know. He's told stories of, his racket arm shaking when he looks down to see it. I don't know how he did that. Straight sets against Djokovic with all that history on the line. It was, it really was something.
Jonathan, I could speak to you for hours, but I'm under our podcast producer's been telling me off for going over 35 minutes, and you also might have a full set. I don't think you will, but so we have a quick fire Wimbledon style. Are you ready for our quick fire round?
Absolutely, go for it.
Your best ever Wimbledon memory as a fan?
Was probably my first one when I queued up and came in the late 1990s, and I saw Mark Petchey play Jim Pugh over 5 sets on either court 4 or court 5. I was thinking about this the other day, but it was one of those just out the back on the southern section, clubhouse end of the southern section. Yep. Anyway, parked myself on a bench. I think I'd bunked off school that day. Petch was from Essex, as I was. So I watched that, and then I got into centre court through the ticket resale scheme.
Yes.
Much later in the day, and I saw 2 games of Stefan Edberg, who was my hero in the 90s, and then I saw the Woodies. So I just had the best day ever, and I think that was mid-90s, early to mid-90s. Maybe they were 2 separate years. I'm now questioning myself, because Edberg might have been earlier than Petch.
Did Petch pay you to put him in the same company as the Woodies and Edberg? Is that how much did that cost him?
Yeah, well, let's just break it down to seeing 2 games of Stefan Edberg, because let's be honest, that was the best thing about that day. And coming in on the resale scheme, which I couldn't believe was a thing, and amazing. Of course still happens to this day. You can still queue up again to get in here to centre court, and there'll be people out here now. Some of these will be in on the resale scheme, and it's one of the great things about Wimbledon for sure.
Finish the sentence. When I think of Wimbledon, I think of.
I think of the champions, the history, the champions, the great list of names, the very best of this sport have all won Wimbledon. It's the one you want to win.
And who's your favourite ever Wimbledon champion and why?
I mean, it's a dull answer. It's a dull answer, but my first Wimbledon as the BBC's correspondent was 2003, and I commentated from this seat on Roger Federer beating Mark Philippoussis, and saw all of Federer's victories on this court, and to me that was perfection on a tennis court. And yeah, I'm going to have to say Roger Federer, as dull as that might be. Sorry.
If you could play on centre court, who would you most like to play, past or present?
Well, no one with any talent, that's for sure, because I'd lose love and love. So who would I like to lose love, and love to is basically the question.
Or have a hit,
I
a
think
friendly
I'd
hit.
like to experience peak Serena, because it's topical, isn't it? We were talking about it this week when she took the wild card and was playing out here, and there was such a debate, and I found it quite interesting that this debate ensued about kind of how well Serena played against Maya Joint, or did she actually not play very well at all? I think you're only saying that if you're expecting to see peak Serena Williams. And who was expecting to see peak Serena Williams after 4 years out? But at her pomp, when she was winning this title for fun, yeah, I would like to experience the raw power of Serena coming at me. It wouldn't be fun, that's for sure.
And the intensity and I mean, I spent we were on the practice court next to her at Queen's Club, and it was like, that hadn't changed. Just that iconic status that she has, and the aura, and then the intensity and the determination and the noise, and it hits different even now at age 44.
Yeah, and that year I mentioned, I did the Federer Philippoussis final. Federer's first was a Venus Serena final, and in 03. So I did a few of those, and I was looking at her the other day, Dan, and I thought, if there's one thing about Serena, and I'm looking out again on centre court now and I've watched so many of her matches, it's the aura. That's exactly what it is. It's that head down, shutting out the world, walking the other side of the net post after the first game, just intense focus. I'm going to do things my way, and I'm going to hit you off the court. So yeah, that's Serena for you. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun and games behind the scenes here this week, I can tell you, with all the goings on and the knee and the doubles pull out and that sort of thing. And did she play well or didn't she against Maya Joint? I mean, it was just a great experience to see one of the all-time greats playing one more time here.
What song would you like to walk out to centre court to?
I'd probably go for something really random, because I'm sort of into quite left field music. So left field, I like a lot of sort of instrumental jazz and cinematic stuff and that sort of stuff. So I'd probably completely confuse the crowd and the DJ by choosing something literally nobody else had ever heard of. And I'd I'd sort of scratch my beard and go, yeah, nice jazz. That's so yeah, I'd probably go for something unconventional like that.
What is your guilty pleasure?
Tennis related.
Yeah. Wimbledon related, tennis related.
So, I mean, serve and volley. I mean, because now it does feel like a guilty pleasure, doesn't it? In the singles game, anyway. And I just love it. I love it as an art form, because I think that's what it is. And I remember interviewing Federer once and saying, this was when he was just winning Wimbledon non-stop, couldn't stop winning Wimbledon. I said, come on, you must have a dream, an ambition that goes beyond winning Wimbledon, sort of like something you do while winning Wimbledon. And he said, well, and he thought about it for a second, and he always gave really interesting answers, Roger, when you interviewed him. And he said, well, I'd like to win Wimbledon one day serve and volleying 100% of the time. And I said, wow, that's a dream. And if anyone could do it, you probably could. Of course, never happened, never got close to happening. But back in the day, I mean, wouldn't that have been great? Wouldn't that have been great to see Roger play in the 80s on the 90s? I bet he could have done it.
Absolutely. We might get Rukova doing it against Osaka, by the way, in the quarterfinals. Watch out for
Yeah,
that. I
could
think
be. That could be
she's going to
interesting. Yeah.
could be bringing some of that. What's one thing you would change about Wimbledon?
One thing I'd change about Wimbledon, I really cool. Mochizuki's playing well here, by the way. He's playing so well in this third set, 3-2 Sinner, but the crowd are absolutely loving this. That's why I'm keep turning that way, because I'm half watching the match while talking to you. Specifically about Wimbledon, I mean, they don't get much wrong, do they? They do not get much wrong. I think the way they've combined the history and the innovation over the last 20 years, especially as they've modified centre court, has been amazing. Tennis in general, there's lots of things, but I suspect that's our next conversation. They could do with putting some of that nice wooden, that wooden cladding that they're putting on the media centre and around court one. There's some really nice sort of sustainable wood they use. There's a lot of metal on centre court from the outside when you're looking back from Hemman Hill. So this is a very boring architectural answer, but I put a bit more wood over the top of the metal.
I hope they're listening.
And yeah. And I went out on the food court earlier, and I came to the conclusion that it's not actually a food court either. Prices in the media restaurant are so expensive. We get priced out, Dan, of our own working environment here in the media complex. So
You don't bring your packed lunch.
I treated myself to a pizza yesterday. Little story. I treated myself to a pizza which cost me £24.60, and it was when Arthur Ferry was 4-1 down. Double breakdown, because I was convinced I had enough time to have a pizza, and my bag was over my shoulder. I was on my way out of the building with my pizza. Next thing you know, he's turned it around and goes on to win in 5, and I was back on for the 5th set of that match, fueled by my £24 pizza.
Did it have gold nuggets in the pizza, or what was the?
It was marinara pizza. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't worth 24 quid.
And Jonathan, last question, very apt. I don't know if you'll be staying up at 1 a.m. this evening to watch England in the World Cup, but come on, who's your winner of the World Cup 2026?
I mean, I'd have said very definitely France before they were frustrated by Paraguay last night, which I.
So you just have to rugby tackle France to put them off.
Right, yeah.
That's what Paraguay, I
I
think
the winner of tonight's match, either of them could go a long way. Brazil play Norway. They're playing at the moment, aren't they? And England, Mexico. If not Argentina.
So you've basically named all. You've basically named all.
Sorry, Dan, missed that.
You've covered all bases.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Have I listed every team left? I think I have. That was the aim. No idea. I'd love England to do it. It'd be incredible, wouldn't it?
Jonathan, this has been a big treat. I love getting the opportunity to speak to you. Just like I say, you taking us through. I say it to you all the time when I see you, but I mean it. You took me through, and all of us through, so many of these incredible events over the last many years, and your voice kind of brings it all back home. Thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for jumping on to control the controllables, and go and get yourself an earlier night and maybe something a little bit cheaper than a €24 pizza.
Look, here's Shintoro. Oh, there he is. He's come all the way over on Yannick Sinner's side of the net. Another brilliant point. Loving it. Look, Darren, it's been an absolute pleasure. No problem at all. Anytime. Wish everyone who's tuning in a happy second week of Wimbledon, particularly the players. Good luck if you're still in the tournament. And we haven't talked about doubles. Oh, you see, there was I thinking you were going to be asking me about that. So
there'll be plenty. There's plenty being talked about, and I would love to get your take on it at some point as well.
I have a few thoughts.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Cheers, Dan.
So there we have it, Jonathan Overend. What an absolute pleasure to have Jonathan joining us here at Control the Controllables. I'm not going to jump in with any more questions. I know there's been a few Dear Dan questions that have jumped in, but we're going to save them for the rest of the week, and I'm going to leave you until tomorrow. But until next time, I'm Dan Kiernan, and we are Control the Controllables.